I don't think anybody logs into Marvel Rivals, queues into a match and says, you know what, I'm gonna be the worst teammate ever. A lot of us want to be a team player, but the problem is a lot of us don't know what it means to be a good team player, okay? I have hundreds and hundreds of hours in this game, probably thousands of matches I've been playing since the alpha, so I wanted to put together some tips for how to be a good team player in Marvel Rivals. Originally, I was gonna make this video just about ranked gameplay, but I think a lot of this can be translated over to quick match play as well. And hey, it is never a bad time to practice being a good teammate in Marvel Rivals. So let's jump into this thing. So the first tip, and there's gonna be an overarching theme throughout the entire video, it's kind of obvious, but be a team player. What does this mean? It is not just about you. Every time you join a match, you are in a 6v6. That means there are 5 other people on your team. So it's time to stop being selfish and only thinking about you. It's time to stop going in there and saying, you know what, I'm just gonna do what I wanna do. I'm gonna be the healer who only DPSs the entire time. I'm going to be the DPS who just runs in the back line, even though I'm not a back liner, then I'm gonna scream at everybody because I don't get heals, because all I'm thinking about is myself and everybody needs to be focusing on me and how to keep me alive. No, you are in a team-based game. So think about how every single decision that you make is affecting your team, either in a positive or a negative way. The next tip is practice a little bit of self-awareness, okay? Think about what is really going on and stop falling into this crazy delusion that you are the best infallible player to ever enter the game of Marvel Rivals. So what this means is, like, when you're playing a game and you lose, nobody has a 100% win rate. When you lose, don't just start playing the blame game and be this D-bag who completely lacks self-awareness. Obviously, there are going to be games when specific people perform badly or they don't do their job. But if your entire team gets rolled in a match, it's really silly to put all the blame on a single person, especially if you're a DPS who went like 4 and 5 and you're like, oh, the healers just didn't do their job and keep me alive. No, sometimes you all just get outplayed, but it is like kind of ridiculous to just single somebody out and not reflect on your own gameplay in any way whatsoever. Or maybe you're playing with some buddies and you guys all just like dogpile on the randoms on your team. Have a little bit of self-awareness, try to see what happened in the match a little bit more objectively, and then move from there so you can improve your game. The next tip is more specifically for ranked gameplay. Do not be that guy who says, yeah, I can play blank, when people ask, hey, can you play DPS or can you play tank? No, tell us who you are good and confident with, okay? I know a lot of us want to think we're this amazing flex player and we could just fill any single role that we want, but a lot of us aren't. And listen, there's no shame in that. There's no shame in not being amazing and competent and confident on every single role. Because of course anybody can play anybody, but that doesn't make it a good idea. One of my favorite stand-ups growing up was Chris Rock's Bigger and Blacker, and he says, yeah, you could drive a car with your feet, but that doesn't make it a good idea. So what this means is if somebody asks me, and they say, hey, Bootman, can you play DPS? Well, of course I could play DPS, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna be good at it. So open your mouth and say, hey, yeah, I can, but I'm not really confident on it. I'm not, really good at it. I don't think I can do the job correctly. There's no shame in that, especially when you're in a ranked game. Everybody wants to win. They will try to make it work. Like, there are far too many ranked games that I go into and somebody just sits there and they're just like, I'm not gonna pick a hero, I'm just gonna pick whatever's left over, right? And then they're just not good in that role, okay? Open your mouth and let people know what you're good with. If they ask you to play a role that you are not confident with, let them know. Because at least if you get stuck in that role, you open your mouth and you said something, okay? Then the blame is no longer on you. But if you pretend that you're just this incredible flex player that can play any role and any hero, you are part of the issue. And the next tip is something that I say constantly on this channel. If you're a subscriber, you already know. If you're not a subscriber, you should be. I make some cool Marvel Rivals video. But this tip is communicate. Communicate, 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 okay? Hopefully you can save up some money from your allowance and invest into a microphone. Communication is so important, especially when you get into ranked gameplay. Something that I have just been trying to learn over time playing Marvel Rivals, I come from a background of like Counter-Strike and stuff, is just how do people communicate? What are the important things to communicate in this game? What is important information? What's not important information? So a great way to do this is to spectate high-level players. So now in the year 2025, and for a while now, there are things like Twitch where you can watch high-level gameplay. You can watch these streamers who play at the top level when they play in tournaments. Back in my day, because I'm an old man, you had to go to a LAN tournament and spectate top teams to see how they communicate in matches. But anyways, I watch, a lot of, for example, I watch a lot of Karava, who plays on Team Nightmare, because he's a strategist and I play a lot of strategists. And I'm like, okay, what's he communicating? And you'll see that people communicate like, hey, here's where my cooldowns are at. Hey, I'm saving my ultimate ability. Like say you're like playing a Mantis or a Luna. Hey, I'm gonna save my ult for when Doctor Strange ults or when Psylocke ults, okay? If you're playing like, Rocket and Punisher, hey, my infinite ammo box, it's up. When do you want me to drop it? Do you want me to drop it now? Here, I'm gonna drop it over here. Hey, I'm gonna initiate a fight with my ult. Whatever the case may be. If you're Doctor Strange, say, hey, I got my ult, I'm gonna try to, look for an opportunity. These are all great things to communicate, and this is what it means to be a good team player. This goes back to what I was originally saying, the very first tip in this video. Being a team player is remembering it's not just about you. It's not just running around, doing your own thing, and not saying anything, because there's far too many people who, let's say you're playing Doctor Strange, you go in there and you're like, where was everybody? Right? Nobody knew you had an ult. And yeah, they can hit tab, they can pull the scoreboard, see that your ult's up, but like, if you're not communicating, going back again, you're not having that self-awareness. You're not looking at yourself and saying, oh, what could I have done better? Oh, I could have opened my mouth. Cool. Communicate, communicate, communicate. It can win you games. The next tip is analyze your gameplay. See where you can improve, all right? Everybody in this game, well, not you, but everybody else. Everybody wants to play the blame game. It's never their fault. Nothing's ever their fault. They're the best player ever. And that's just really not the case. Take a step back and say, hey, what could I have done better? Where could I improve? I actually was watching a Flash video recently, and he was going over this Reddit post that was saying like watching high-level players play versus the mentality in the subreddit shows why a lot of players can't climb. And they basically say like, I caught some high-level gameplay, and they were pretty critical about their own gameplay, and they always commented on how they made mistakes. Like, hey, I shouldn't have been positioned here, or I shouldn't have used my ability at this time. Maybe I should play more with the backline. And like, this is crucial, right? For those of you who don't know me, just a real quick story. This is something I try to implement in my life, but I'm sober, I'm in recovery. I got clean and sober back in 2012, and something my sponsor always told me, because I always blamed the rest of the world for my problems. My sponsor always told me, he's like, Chris, it's a lot easier for you to fix you than it is to try to fix the rest of the world. So it seems silly me bringing up this example, but it carries over into so many things. I can sit there in every single game and blame my teammate for this. Oh, you weren't giving me enough heals. Oh, you weren't tanking well enough. Oh, DPS, you weren't getting enough kills. But it's like, what could I have been doing, right? Like, I'm a strategist. I can blame the entire team for not protecting me when I'm getting dove all the time. And yes, it is helpful, but what can I do in that situation? Can I analyze my gameplay and figure out how to get out of those situations, how to counter it myself? What can I do? Or maybe I wasn't communicating. Maybe I never even told my team I'm getting dove in the backline. So analyze your gameplay and see where you can improve, because if you're just sitting there blaming everybody else, you're being a terrible team player and you're not gonna improve in Marvel Rivals. The next tip is don't get offended and don't get so defensive. Here is just the best tip I can give you. I started practicing mindfulness a long time ago, and something it taught me is to just take a second. Take a literal second before you just snap back at people. So this great thing that you could do is, if somebody comments on your gameplay, if they give you a criticism, regardless of their tone, yeah, some people are gonna sound like a jerk when they say it, but just pause for a literal second and say, is what they're saying make sense? Are they correct with what they're saying? Rather than just immediately saying, I didn't do anything wrong, I can't do anything wrong, I'm perfect, you know? Like, stop getting so defensive. Like, for example, like last night I was playing, I didn't realize that my ultimate popped up and somebody commented on it. And I was like, oh, it was a buddy of mine. We were queuing up and I was like, oh crap, I didn't even realize it popped up. I thought it was still charging. My bad. You see how easy that is? You see how, you see how simple that is? Like, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes, you know? And there's always something to learn in this game. Even the best players in the world are constantly learning in this game. My favorite teammates to play with are ones where you can say something to them and they're like, you know what, you're right. Oh, my bad. Or even if you do criticize them and they think you're wrong, they can have a conversation like adults rather than just saying, no, I didn't do anything wrong, like a big old baby. Being a big old baby is not being a good teammate, okay? So again, just to repeat this, because this is so important, take just a second, take just a minute and say, is what they're saying make sense? Are they correct? If they're wrong, whatever. If it's like a stranger and they're saying something, if they're wrong, just let it go, okay? But at least reflect for a second before snapping back like you are just this infallible human being, okay? So the next tip is switch heroes when it's necessary, okay? This can be for a slew of reasons. Maybe the hero you're playing is not right for the situation. Maybe you're just doing terribly for, you know, that hero, right? You're not filling out your role. And again, this goes back to not being defensive. Like if somebody's like, yo, you're not really like doing what you're supposed to do as a DPS, like, hey, would you mind switching, okay? Don't get defensive, take a look and say, oh, you know what? I'm not getting any frags. Maybe it's not my game. Or maybe the hero you're playing is just bad for the situation. Like an offensive penny. Hey, playing penny on in offense can work and some people can pull it off, but you do need to have that self-awareness and say, oh, I'm not that guy, I'm not that dude, I'm not the one who could do that, and then just simply switch. And this is a great way to be like a good team player. Like, let's say you're playing DPS and you're just not getting frags, open your mouth. Say, hey, you guys, sorry, my game's off right now. Hey, can I switch to healer? Can I switch to tank? Does somebody else want to fill this role? There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame. I think, you know, as I make this video and as I'm talking about it, I think a lot of people, and this is just a problem with a lot of people in general, it's something that I've had to work on my entire life, is that we don't want to admit that we're not performing well, right? That we're wrong, that we made a mistake, or, you know, it's just not our day. But there's so much power. Like if you want to win, like when you're playing competitive, especially when you're playing ranked play, it's about winning, right? It's about winning. So do what's best for the team and say, hey, it's time for me to get off this hero. Can anybody switch? And if they can't, you know what? Lock the F in and try to do your thing, okay? So the next tip is please, 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 for the love of God, when you're playing ranked, don't experiment with new heroes. It's not the time nor the place, okay? There's quick match, there's doom match, there's practice against AI, there's conquest. There are so many opportunities to practice new heroes, but in a ranked match, that is not the time nor the place. A great example is just yesterday. I work from home, so I usually have like streamers up and I'm just chilling. And I've had Tim the Tap Man up. Love the dude, love watching him rage. It's fun, and he's pretty knowledgeable about the game. But anyways, they're playing ranked, dude's in Grandmaster, and somebody's like playing Iron Man or something. They're like, hey, can anybody play Hulk? He's like, screw it, I'll play Hulk. Literally had never played Hulk in his entire life. And he's like, yeah, I can play Hulk. Like, listen, if you're in a match and somebody wants to team up or something and you've never played that hero, it's probably a bad idea to do it, because check it out, like their ability to, you know, perform well with that hero, with the team up, is probably not gonna offset the fact that you have literally never played that hero before, okay? So in ranked, it is not the time nor the place to experiment with new heroes. And the last tip is stop focusing solely on the stats and focusing on the scoreboard, okay? Focus on your impact. Far too many people are just like way too into stats, and I love stats. I'm a big old stats nerd. And don't just sit there and say, hey, you know, here's how many kills we got, or here's how many heals I got, here's what I did, here's what they did, da-da-da-da-da. Like, you have to look at the overall impact, okay? Like, for example, a Luna ult can win you a game, right? If you time that thing correctly, if you block, you know, just a major ult from the other team, that can win you a game, okay? So, did you make an impact? That should be the question that you are asking yourself, okay? Sometimes you're just like kind of doing mediocre the whole time, but hey, you're playing Doctor Strange, you just do a massive ult on the other team. You were just a sneaky little guy. You flew in, you dropped in behind them, you just ulted their whole team, you got a wipe and you won the game, all right? But hey, you only had like 3 or 4 kills, whatever. Like, did you make an impact? That should be what you're looking at. Ask yourself, was I a good team player? Was I doing my role? Was I supporting the rest of my team, allowing them to do what they're supposed to do? This is what you should be focusing on rather than purely just the stats. But anyways, those are a bunch of tips to be a great team player. So go out there into the world, be the best team player that you can be, and I promise that you'll get a lot more wins and people will like you a lot better if you just implement a few of these things. But anyways, that's all I got for this video. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell because I got a ton of Marvel Rivals content coming for you. So have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.